Hey there and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a secret story, one that's tucked away inside one of the world's most cherished names. It's a name that connects two of the most important women in history, and it means the exact opposite of what you probably guess. Okay, so let's just jump right in with a question that seems super simple, right? We all know the name Meri, or its original form, Miriam. It sounds so gentle, graceful, classic. But what if I told you its real meaning is something completely different? Something kind of shocking, actually. Yep, you heard that right. The original Hebrew root of the name Miriam, which, eventually becomes Meri, means rebellion. It comes from a word that means being stubborn, defiant, even contentious. I mean, that feels like the total opposite of what the name means to us today, doesn't it? So that's the big puzzle, right? How does a name that literally means rebellion become one of the most beloved and revered names in history? Well, that's the mystery we're going to solve together. Think of this as a little detective story, following the clues through some ancient history and language. All right, our investigation starts with the very first person to ever have this name, the prophetess Miriam. You might know her as the sister of Moses and Aaron. And her life story? Well, it gives us our first big clue about the name's rebellious spirit. And if you look at her life, it's this incredible mix of two extremes. On one hand, she shows amazing faith and courage. I mean, she protects her baby brother Moses, she leads a victory celebration. But on the other hand, she also shows this streak of defiance. She challenges Moses, who was God's chosen leader, head on. And look, the Bible is not subtle about this at all. This moment of rebellion is a huge part of her story. It's where she totally lives up to her name. This wasn't just some small family argument. It was a direct challenge to the authority that God had established, and the punishment was incredibly severe. Okay, so we've seen how the person Miriam really embodied this idea of rebellion. But now let's get into the weeds of the language itself to see exactly where this meaning comes from. This is where this story gets really fascinating, because we can trace the name all the way back to its origin. So it all starts with the name we know, Miriam. And as we've said, it means rebellion. But what's really cool is that linguistically, it's not just a vague idea. It's directly pulled from a specific Hebrew noun that carries all this weight. That name, Miriam, comes directly from this noun, Meri. And Meri isn't just about being a little stubborn, it's talking about straight-up revolt. It's a really strong word. But believe it or not, we can actually go back one step further. And here we go. This is the ultimate source, the root verb Marah. This is the actual action at the heart of the name, the very act of rebelling. And what's so important is that pretty much every time this verb is used in the Old Testament, it means rebelling against one person in particular, God. So you can see the path, right? It's so clear. You have the action to rebel, which is Marah. That action gives you the idea or the concept of rebellion, which is marafi. And from that concept, you get a person's name, Miriam. The connection is just, it's undeniable. Now, this whole idea of rebellion, it isn't just some quirky little detail about a name. It's actually a massive, powerful theme that runs through the entire story of the Old Testament. It's often used to describe the, well, let's say, difficult relationship between God and the people of Israel. Think about it. This word for rebellion, Meri, shows up 23 times. Now, that might not sound like a ton, but in biblical terms, that means it's a really important concept. It tells us that the writers kept coming back to this idea again and again to describe something fundamental about their story. But here's where it gets wild. Look at where those 23 mentions are. A whopping 16 of them, that's almost 70%, are in just one book, the book of the prophet Ezekiel. And in that book, it's almost never about just one person. It's used to describe the entire nation. And this verse from Ezekiel just nails it. God isn't talking to one person. He's calling the entire nation of Israel a house of rebellion, a Beth Meri. So the name that was given to one rebellious woman has now become the label for an entire people, defining their stubborn relationship with God. Okay, so we have this name that's heavy, right? It's loaded with this history of rebellion, both for a person and for a nation. So the million-dollar question is, how in the world does this become the name of Meri, the mother of Jesus, who is seen as the ultimate model of faith and obedience? And you know what? The answer is actually pretty straightforward. It's all about language changing over time. When the Hebrew scriptures got translated into Greek, the name Miriam turned into Maria. Then, as it moved into English, it became Meri. But linguistically, they are the exact same name. And this is where the whole story just comes together in this beautiful, powerful contrast. You've got one name with one consistent meaning, rebellion, but it's tied to two women who are polar opposites. One is defined by her act of challenging authority, and the other is defined by her statement of complete submission. So what you're really seeing is a redemption story, but it's not about a person being redeemed. It's about a name being redeemed. The legacy of Miryam and rebellion is totally transformed by the legacy of Meri and submission. The name that once defined the rebellious house of Israel is redefined by the woman who says yes to God. Which leaves us with this one last thing to chew on. The story of Miriam and Meri really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Does the name you're given define who you are? Or do your actions have the power to redefine your name for everyone who comes after you? It's a powerful idea that legacy isn't just something we're given. It's something we build. Thanks for diving in with me.